Hi guys, I bought a house in New Zealand at 25 on one income. No partner is on the mortgage with me, no trust fund. I did get some help and I'll tell you how I did along the way. I'm gonna be completely honest, it was never in the cards for me or something that was top of mind that I wanted to buy a house. After graduating uni and getting a new corporate job, buying a house was not on my list of things to do. But my parents were actually looking at buying a house here in New Zealand and they met with a mortgage broker. And then they started getting to talking about me and my financial situation because I just got a new job. My mom was like, yeah, we started talking about you, and she was saying that you have actually a really good opportunity with your new job to buy a new house. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't want to buy a house. Like, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm gonna be broke. I'm gonna be broke again. Like, I just got this job, I just got a raise, and now I'm gonna have to pay a huge mortgage. That's exactly what I was thinking. And so I was like, I don't know. I met with the mortgage broker and actually everything she was saying was making sense, and it wasn't gonna be much more than the rent that I was already paying. So might as well have an asset, but pay the same amount of rent, maybe even less. And I put my application in just to get the numbers and estimate of how much I could borrow and how much I could afford. And honestly, the process of looking for houses is really fun. I was looking since the beginning of 2024 till almost the end of 2024. I feel like it's pretty normal for first home buyers because I didn't really know what I wanted going into it, what I needed from a house. I kind of knew from my mortgage broker that I needed to have flatmates so that I didn't have to pay as much and I wouldn't have to be stretched for cash. So ideally I would have a house that is 3 bedrooms so then I could get some flatmates in. But other than that, I didn't really know what I was looking for. And so that's why it took me so long. And my budget wasn't quite solid. So I was looking, there was a point in time I was looking at the wrong budget and then I needed to reel it in like a little bit. You know how Auckland is, like everything here is expensive. And it's easy to slip into a tax bracket that you're not in. So I just had to reel that in and look at houses that were in my budget. There was this one house that I really wanted. It was out of my price range, but I put an offer. It was the first house that I put an offer on because I wasn't exactly sure how much my budget was at this point because I hadn't gotten pre-approval yet. But I liked this house so much that I was like, I'm just gonna put an offer and then see what the bank says. But it was just slightly too much for what my salary was. So I had to let it go, and we still think about it to this day. So I told you guys that I was not planning on buying a house. Buying a house was just not on my radar. That also means I did not have any savings. Like, just because I had the salary to buy a house, I did not have savings. So this whole time that I was looking for a house, I was also saving because I then knew, okay, it's a goal for me to find a house, so I need to save for this deposit. And I did have my Kiwi saver that was gonna hit 3 years at the end of the year. So I needed something that was gonna be kind of, you know, ready and to move in at the end of the year. But I didn't have a full deposit. So I did have to ask for a little bit of help from my parents, but I will say there is no shame in getting help for a deposit. If you can do the mortgage by yourself, get some help and pay them back, then highly recommend that because time was of the essence for what the type of loan that I was gonna get. Because there was a big jump from my old job to my new job in terms of salary, I was eligible for a lower deposit amount. Because my salary had just gone up, the amount of money I'd earned for the past year was still under a threshold, which means I could have a higher loan and a smaller deposit. This house is under my name and the mortgage is fully my responsibility. Honestly, I didn't know that this was gonna be the house. When I found this house, I loved it immediately. There were some pros and cons because I was looking at a lot of houses at this point. Pros was the price. It was in my price range. It had the number of rooms that I needed. I just liked the specs, which is like just the details of the house, the backsplash and the bathrooms and just all that kind of stuff. I just wasn't sure about this area. I didn't know it very well. I had to venture a little bit out of my area that I'm normally used to living in. I have no regrets at this point. I do love this area. It's close to so many different things. I really loved the realtor on this house and she made the process honestly so easy that I was like, yeah, why not? I was just like, yeah, let's do it. Well, we agreed on a price. We put a 15-day until unconditional. So it was conditional for 15 days. Did all the paperwork, everything was lining up, put my deposit down, and We settled on the house at the beginning of this year, 24th of February, 2025. So very recently that I just bought this house, and we found some amazing flatmates. So when it comes to budgeting and all that for the deposit and to buy the furniture, as I mentioned, my other job was at a lower salary. And I consciously knew when I was going to go into this new job with a higher salary that I was going to continue living at the same cost of living I did on my lower salary, so that all the extra income I was getting was going to go into my savings. This is something I kind of already was planning. I was going to save that money just to have it, but then I guess I wanted to buy a house now, so it was going to go all towards the house. That was my strategy for saving. It was just keeping my cost of living down. If you're looking at buying a house here in New Zealand or in Auckland, my advice would be to find a mortgage broker that you trust and just shop around. I always tell people to start with a mortgage broker because they can tell you how much you can borrow from the bank. They can run the numbers with you. Rather than just going straight to a bank, banks are a lot more rigid with like the 20% down or 30% down or whatever it may be, whereas mortgage brokers know the rules of each bank and they might know which bank would work best for your situation. When you're buying a house, you do need to kind of build your entourage or your team. So like the team that you need, I always say mortgage broker and a lawyer. Those ones are my non-negotiables, but then there also could be a realtor if you want someone to help you find a place. I just did the finding on my own, but if you need someone to help you find places that might not be listed, if you're just having a hard time finding things, because it can be like honestly a full-time job looking for a house, then you can find a realtor. When I was looking for people to add into my entourage, I went to those who had already bought a house and asked their experience, who they recommend, and then just went from there. I didn't really do the Google search or anything. And I feel like that's how New Zealand is, kind of like a lot of people just kind of go off word of mouth. And that's how I found my mortgage broker and my lawyer. And that's the same team that I have now while I'm buying the second house. Now, I'm not a financial advisor and I'm not gonna know everything to do with rates, and I can't tell you how much you can borrow or anything. Once you know, or once you have a goal, so if you know, oh, I just need a 10% increase and then I could afford a house, or I have the deposit but I can't afford a mortgage of the type of house that I want, then at least you have a goal of where you're going, rather than just like buying a house is this arbitrary thing that only happens when you have this much money and this much money. If my parents didn't go out and talk to a mortgage broker, I would have never known that I could get a house. I always thought that, oh, I couldn't get a house at this point. If you want to get a house and don't know where to start, I would start with a mortgage broker because they will just run the numbers and you will know what goal you need to set, or if you can actually buy a house now and you just didn't know. I just filmed a video about how I got into the financial position that I am today to buy my first house and look into buying my second house. So if you guys are interested in that, please click somewhere on the screen. Bye guys.